The silence of deep space has a way of playing tricks on your mind. After 3 months alone on a routine salvage run, I'd gotten used to talking to myself just to remember what another human voice sounded like. My ship, the Horizon Seeker, wasn't much for conversation beyond the occasional system alert. So when my scanners picked up an anomalous signal from an uncharted sector, I nearly jumped out of my chair from excitement rather than fear. Proximity alert, unknown vessel detected. Classification, none. Origin, none. Purpose, unknown. I leaned forward, squinting at the readout. That couldn't be right. Every ship, even the oldest junkers floating around the outer colonies, had classification codes. The Galactic Coalition made damn sure of that after the border wars. Computer, recheck scan parameters. That can't be accurate. Scan parameters verified. Unknown vessel confirmed. Correction, vessels. Multiple signatures detected. My heart skipped a beat. Not one ship but many. As I adjusted course to investigate, the vastness of what lay before me slowly came into view. It wasn't just a small cluster of ships, it was an entire fleet, silent and dark against the backdrop of space, like a graveyard of metal giants. Protocol dictated I should report this immediately to Coalition Command. Unregistered ships of this quantity could represent a serious threat. Pirates, rebels, or worse. But something held me back. Curiosity, maybe. Or perhaps the fact that after years of following orders and regulations, I'd grown tired of being just another cog in the machine. I maneuvered closer, running passive scans to avoid triggering any defense systems. The results were baffling. These ships weren't just unregistered, they were ancient. The design configurations predated the Coalition itself, possibly even the Great Expansion. Yet despite their age they appeared remarkably intact. Computer, estimated timeline of vessel construction? Based on hull composition and design specifications, approximately 200 to 250 standard Earth years. I whistled softly. That would place them right around the time of the Lost Expedition, a near-mythical fleet that disappeared during humanity's first attempts to push beyond our solar system. History books mentioned it briefly, but most considered it a failed mission, its crew and ships long since destroyed. With my thrusters on minimal power, I guided the Horizon Seeker toward what appeared to be the command vessel, a massive ship easily 10 times the size of my salvage craft. Its hull was marked with faded insignias I didn't recognize, written in an old Earth language that predated Universal Standard. Warning: oxygen levels detected within unknown vessel. Life support systems, minimal functionality. I froze. That couldn't be possible. After 2 centuries, any life support should have failed completely. Either my computer was malfunctioning or something, or someone, was maintaining these systems. I suited up, double-checking my oxygen reserves and making sure my personal beacon was transmitting back to my ship. If something happened to me, at least there'd be a record. As I prepared to board, I recorded a quick message, setting it to broadcast on a delayed timer if I didn't return in 6 hours. This is Captain Alex Chin of the independent salvage vessel Horizon Seeker. I've discovered what appears to be an abandoned fleet in Sector 7 Gamma 3, coordinates attached. If you're receiving this, I failed to return from investigating. The ships appear to be of ancient Earth origin, possibly connected to the Lost Expedition of 2189. Whatever you do, don't let the Coalition know about this until you've secured the area. What I've found here, it's too important to fall into corporate hands. The airlock hissed as I crossed the threshold into the ancient vessel. My helmet lights cut through the darkness, revealing corridors untouched by human footsteps for generations. The air was thin but breathable, another impossibility that sent chills down my spine. As I moved deeper into the ship, I began noticing something strange. The technology around me was old, yes, but not in the way I expected. Some of it seemed almost advanced compared to modern Coalition tech. Not sleeker or more elegant, but fundamentally different, as if humanity had taken an entirely different technological path than the one we ultimately followed. In what appeared to be the ship's command center, I found the first body. Not a skeleton as I'd expected, but a perfectly preserved human form in what looked like some kind of stasis chamber. The face was peaceful, almost as if sleeping. The uniform was unfamiliar, adorned with patches and insignias that matched nothing in my historical database. As I approached, the chamber suddenly hummed to life, lights flickering on its control panel. I jumped back, heart pounding in my chest. The system was responding to my presence. After 2 centuries, it was still functional. The screen beside the chamber illuminated with text. Genetic profile detected. Descendant confirmation protocol initiated. Before I could process what was happening, A holographic projection appeared before me. A woman in a captain's uniform, her features sharp and determined despite the flickering quality of the ancient projection. If you're seeing this message, you are a descendant of our crew. The Coalition has likely told you we were lost, failed, or never existed at all. They lied. We didn't get lost, we found something. Something that would change humanity forever. Something they wanted buried. She gestured, and the hologram expanded to show schematics of technology one couldn't begin to comprehend. What we discovered could free humanity from scarcity, from corporate control, from the systems of power that have kept our species caged. The Coalition wasn't formed to unite humanity, it was created to control it, to ensure that what we found never reached the people. The hologram flickered, her expression growing more urgent. We hid ourselves away, preserved our knowledge, and waited for the right time, for someone like you to find us. The Coalition will tell you we're terrorists, revolutionaries, dangerous idealists. Perhaps we are. But we're also the last free humans who remember what it meant to put people before profit, exploration before exploitation. She leaned forward, her holographic eyes somehow meeting mine across the centuries. You have a choice now. Walk away, report this discovery, return to your life. Or wake us up, learn the truth, and help us finish what we started 200 years ago. The hologram vanished, leaving me alone with the sleeping crew member and a decision that would change not just my life, but potentially the course of human history itself. I looked down at my Coalition-issued emergency beacon, then back at the stasis chamber with its softly blinking lights. The revolution, it seemed, had been waiting for someone to simply find it. And now, for better or worse, that someone was me. I stared at my hand hovering over the stasis chamber controls, fingers trembling slightly. My entire life, I'd played by the rules, filed my salvage reports on time, paid my exorbitant docking fees, kept my head down during Coalition inspections. Even my occasional smuggling jobs were small-time, harmless. This was different. This was rebellion. Computer, confirm life signs in other vessels, I said, speaking to my ship through the comm link. Confirmed. Multiple stasis chambers active across 17 vessels. Estimated occupant count, 4,327. I let out a slow breath. 4,000 people from another time, preserved and waiting. An army of ghosts with a grudge against the world I knew. The rational part of me screamed to back away, return to my ship, and forget I ever found this place. But then my eyes drifted to the patches on the sleeping crew member's uniform. Earth emblems that predated the corporate sponsorship logos that now dominated Coalition military attire. Back when exploration was about discovery, not resource acquisition. I thought about my parents who died working Coalition mining operations in the asteroid belt. About my sister, still paying off the debt from their funeral expenses 20 years later. About the millions living in cramped habitation blocks while the elite few owned entire moons. My decision wasn't just about awakening the past, it was about changing the future. I placed my palm on the scanner beside the stasis chamber. The system hummed, analyzing my genetic profile. The display flashed green, descendant confirmed, Chin William. Third engineer, Deep Space Initiative. William Chin. A name I'd never heard, yet apparently my ancestor. The stasis pod hissed as ancient seals broke for the first time in centuries. The woman inside, her name tag read Commander Harper, didn't wake immediately. The system began a careful revival process, checking vitals and slowly raising her core temperature. While waiting, I explored more of the command center. The technology was strange, not primitive as I'd expected, but different. Where Coalition tech was sleek and miniaturized, this was robust and purposeful. No planned obsolescence here. These systems were built to last centuries, and they had. I accessed a terminal, surprised to find it responsive. Historical records, scientific data, personal logs, a treasure trove of information the Coalition had apparently erased from our history. I skimmed through entries piecing together the story. The lost expedition wasn't just exploring, they were fleeing. They'd discovered something in the outer reaches of the solar system, something embedded in an asteroid near Neptune. The logs called it simply the artifact. A piece of technology clearly not of human origin. When they reported their find, expecting celebration, they instead received encrypted orders to destroy it and return for debriefing. But someone in the crew intercepted communications revealing the truth. Corporate interests had already decided to weaponize the discovery, seeing its potential not as a way to advance humanity, but to control it. So they ran, taking the artifact with them. They used its power to develop technologies the corporations couldn't imagine, including the stasis technology that had preserved them all these years while they waited for pursuit to die down. But according to later logs, They eventually realized the corporations that would become the coalition would never stop looking. Their only hope was to hide, hibernate, and wait for a future generation, one with ancestors among their crew, to find them. A soft groan pulled me away from the terminal. Commander Harper's eyes were opening, unfocused at first, then widening as she saw my face. "You came," she whispered, voice hoarse from centuries of disuse. "How long?" 236 years, I answered. She closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the information. "Everyone you knew is gone?" I nodded, helping her sit up. "The coalition controls everything now, inner planets, outer colonies, trade routes. They call it unity, but it's just control." "And the artifact? Did they find others?" "I don't know what you mean. There's no record of any artifacts in our history. Just stories about failed expeditions and the dangers of deep space." A bitter smile crossed her face. "Of course, they erased us." She swung her legs over the edge of the pod, wincing as she tested muscles that hadn't moved in centuries. The medical systems had prevented atrophy, but her body still needed time to remember itself. "Help me up. We need to wake the others, starting with Dr. Nishimura. He designed the stasis systems." As I supported her toward another chamber, she studied me. "You look like Will." Same stubborn chin. Her expression softened. "He was a good man. Brilliant engineer. He'd be proud you found us." "I don't know anything about him," I admitted. "Family records only go back 4 generations in the colonial database." "Another thing they took from you," she said. "Your history." We reached another stasis pod, this one containing an older man with streaks of gray in his black hair. Commander Harper input a series of commands, initiating his revival sequence. "While we wait," she said, "tell me about yourself. How did you find us?" I explained about my salvage work, the anomalous readings, my decision to investigate. As I spoke, more details about my life spilled out: my struggling business, the crushing taxes, the daily indignities of life under coalition rule. Harper listened intently, occasionally asking questions that revealed how much the world had changed. "So they succeeded," she finally said. "The corporations became the government." "They are the government," I confirmed. "Everything else is just for show." Dr. Nishimura's pod hissed open, and Harper turned her attention to him, speaking softly as he regained consciousness. As they conversed in hushed tones, I wandered back to the terminal, digging deeper into the logs. What I found sent a chill through me: detailed plans for technology that would render the coalition's control obsolete. Energy generation without fuel. Manufacturing without supply chains. Communication without centralized networks. Medicine without patented compounds. Everything the corporations profited from, made irrelevant. "Finding anything interesting?" Harper had appeared behind me, steadier on her feet now and with Dr. Nishimura beside her, leaning on a makeshift cane. "You really could have changed everything," I said. "We still can," she replied. "That's why we waited. But we need to move quickly. The moment we start reviving more crew, our power signature will increase. If any coalition vessels are in the sector, they might detect us," I finished. "But we're in uncharted space." "Uncharted." Dr. Nishimura spoke for the first time, his voice scratchy. "This sector was mapped before we left Earth." A cold realization washed over me. They remapped the stars. Changed the names, altered the coordinates. I looked at them both. "They didn't just erase you from history, they erased where you'd been." Harper's expression hardened. "Then we have less time than I thought. We need to wake the rest of the command crew immediately and move the fleet. If they've gone to such lengths to hide us, they must still fear what we know, what we can do." The ship's lights suddenly dimmed, then brightened as auxiliary systems engaged. "What was that?" I asked. Harper exchanged a glance with Nishimura. "The artifact," she said. "It's responding to increased activity. It's been dormant while we slept, but now it knows we're awake," Nishimura finished. "And it's waking up too." A distant humming sound began to build, like the largest engine I'd ever heard spooling up. And somewhere deep in the massive ship, something ancient and powerful was stirring, ready to reshape the galaxy once more. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. We revived the command crew first, 23 specialists ranging from tactical officers to scientists. Each awakening was like witnessing history come to life, faces from a forgotten era opening their eyes to a universe that had tried to erase them. "We need to move," Harper insisted once the core team was functional. "Alex, your salvage ship, how's the communications array?" "Standard coalition issue, but I've modified it." Removed the mandatory tracking protocols. She raised an eyebrow. Illegal modifications. Just insurance, I shrugged. Salvagers who find something valuable don't always want the coalition taking a cut. Smart, said Lieutenant Rivera, the tactical officer whose revival had been particularly rough. But not enough. Coalition tracking tech has probably evolved beyond what you've disabled. Dr. Nishimura nodded. We need to integrate your vessel with our systems. The artifact's shielding properties should mask your ship's signature too. I followed them through the massive command vessel, the Prometheus I'd learned it was called, toward what they simply referred to as containment. As we walked, more crew members were being revived throughout the fleet, each ship gradually humming back to life after centuries of dormancy. You still haven't really explained what this artifact actually is, I said as we descended into the lower levels of the ship. Harper exchanged glances with Nishimura before answering. Because we don't fully understand it ourselves. It's not just technology, it's something more. Alive? I asked. Not exactly, Nishimura said. But not inanimate either. Responds. Adapts. Sometimes it seems to anticipate needs before we express them. We reached a sealed door that required all 4 command officers to unlock. As it slid open, a soft blue light spilled into the corridor. The humming I'd heard earlier was stronger here, resonating in my chest like a second heartbeat. Inside was a spherical chamber, and suspended in its center was something. Not quite solid, not quite energy. A shifting, pulsing mass about the size of a human head, glowing with an inner blue light that seemed to bend and twist the space around it. We found it embedded in an asteroid, Harper explained. At first, we thought it was just an unusual mineral formation. Then it started changing the equipment we were using to study it, improving it, rewriting it at the molecular level. I stared, mesmerized by its gentle pulsations. What did the corporations want with it? What do they always want? Rivera said bitterly. Power. Control. They recognized immediately that whoever controlled the artifact would control humanity's future. Their scientists determined it could be weaponized. Imagine being able to rewrite matter at will. But that's not what it's for, Nishimura said, his voice reverent. It's a seed. A seed? I tore my eyes away from the artifact to look at him. A technological seed. Designed to help species advance, to mature. But only if they're ready. Only if they use it wisely. Harper stepped closer to me. That's why we ran. The corporations would have used it to enhance their control, to create weapons and surveillance beyond anything imaginable. We believed humanity deserved better, deserved the chance to use this gift as it was intended. The artifact pulsed brighter as we spoke about it, almost as if it understood. It's been conserving energy while we slept, Nishimura explained. But now that we're awake. A sudden alarm blared through the ship, cutting him off. Rivera rushed to a console. Proximity alert, he said, face grim. Coalition patrol vessel, heavy cruiser class. They're on a standard sweep pattern, but they'll detect us if they get much closer. Harper immediately shifted into command mode. How many awakened crew do we have? 117 across all vessels, someone reported from a communications station. Not enough to move the fleet, Harper muttered. Alex, we need your ship now. If we can boost its signal using the artifact, we might be able to project a false reading, make them think there's nothing here but space debris. The next hours were a frantic race against time. I shuttled back to the Horizon Seeker, bringing it alongside the Prometheus while Nishimura and a team of engineers worked to integrate our systems. The artifact responded to their efforts, tendrils of blue energy occasionally extending to touch and transform pieces of equipment. Through my ship's sensors, we tracked the coalition cruiser as it moved methodically through the sector. It would cross our position in approximately 3 hours. It's not working fast enough, Rivera said, staring at the integration progress. The artifact is helping, but the systems are too different. We won't be ready before they detect us. Harper's jaw tightened. Then we need a distraction. She turned to me. Alex, how well do you know these patrol patterns? Well enough. They're predictable, designed to intimidate more than actually find anything. Could you create a salvage signature elsewhere in the sector? Something interesting enough to investigate, but not so unusual they'd call for backup. I thought about it. Maybe. My ship's distress beacon could be modified to mimic a damaged freighter. They'd be obligated to check it out. Do it, she ordered. Lieutenant Rivera will go with you. Rivera looked surprised. Commander, I should stay. You're the best tactical officer I have, and Alex knows this space. Between you, you might buy us the time we need. As Rivera and I prepared to depart, Dr. Nishimura pulled me aside, pressing something cold and heavy into my hand. It was a small container, and inside was a tiny fragment of the artifact, glowing with the same blue light. "Insurance," he said quietly. "If something goes wrong, if they catch you, this will protect you. Don't ask me how I separated it, the artifact itself showed me how. It wants to help." I stared at the fragment. "Won't this alert them to what we have?" "Not if you keep it contained. The shielding will hold for 24 hours. After that." He shrugged. "After that either we've succeeded or we've failed." As Rivera and I boarded my ship, Harper gripped my shoulder. "Your ancestor believed in what we were doing enough to leave Earth behind forever. I see that same conviction in you." I nodded, suddenly aware of the weight of history pressing down on me. "See you in a few hours." "You better," she said with a tight smile. The Horizon Seeker detached from the Prometheus, its systems now subtly altered by contact with the artifact. The display seemed sharper, the engines more responsive. As we cleared the fleet's perimeter, I caught Rivera staring at the Coalition cruiser visible on our long-range scanners. "First time seeing one?" I asked. "Last time I saw Coalition ships, they were Earth Defense Force vessels," he said quietly. "Smaller. Less militarized. What happened to us, Alex? To humanity?" I had no good answer. Instead, I focused on piloting, taking us on a wide arc that would keep us hidden behind a debris field until we reached our destination. There, I pointed to a magnified section of space. "That asteroid cluster. If we set up the beacon there, the signal will bounce around, make it harder to pinpoint. They'll have to search the whole area." As we worked to modify my distress beacon, Rivera kept glancing at the small container Nishimura had given me. "He shouldn't have done that," he said finally. "Done what?" "Separated a piece of the artifact. We don't fully understand it. Each piece might have the potential of the whole." Before I could ask what he meant, our sensors detected movement. The Coalition cruiser was altering course, heading directly toward the fleet's position. "They've spotted something," I said, heart sinking. "They're not following patrol patterns anymore." Rivera's face went pale. "We're too late." I made a split-second decision, firing up the Horizon Seeker's engines. "Not yet, we're not." "What are you doing?" "Something stupid," I admitted, plotting an intercept course. "We can't outrun that cruiser and we can't outgun it. But we might be able to distract it." As we rocketed toward the Coalition vessel, I felt the container in my pocket grow warmer. Through the viewport, I could see the massive cruiser growing larger, its weapon systems undoubtedly already tracking us. "Alex," Rivera said, voice steady despite the fear in his eyes, "whatever happens next, humanity deserves to know the truth. About us. About what's possible." I nodded, opening a communications channel to the cruiser while simultaneously transmitting a coded message back to the Prometheus. Whatever happened in the next few minutes would determine not just our fate, but potentially the future of human civilization itself. The artifact fragment pulsed against my side, almost like a heartbeat, as the cruiser's commanding officer appeared on my view screen, her Coalition uniform pristine, her expression cold. "Salvage vessel Horizon Seeker," she said, "you are in restricted space. Power down and prepare to be boarded." Behind her, I could see the bridge of the cruiser, and the moment when their sensors detected the ancient fleet hidden beyond us. Her eyes widened slightly and I knew our time had just run out. "Salvage vessel, power down immediately," the Coalition officer repeated, but her eyes weren't on me anymore. They were fixed on something her sensors were telling her about the fleet behind us. I reached for the artifact fragment in my pocket, not sure what I planned to do with it, just knowing I needed to buy more time. But before my fingers could close around it, Rivera grabbed my wrist. "Wait," he whispered, staring at the view screen. "I know her." I glanced between him and the stern-faced Coalition commander. Her name badge read Captain Dalton, and nothing in her cold expression suggested she was anything but an enemy. "That's impossible," I hissed back. "She's Coalition. You've been in stasis for over 2 centuries." But Rivera was already standing, moving into the full view of the communication feed. "Sarah Dalton," he said, his voice steady. "Your great-grandmother was Dr. Elizabeth Dalton, ship's physician on the Artemis." The captain's composure cracked, just for a moment, a flash of shock crossing her face before her training reasserted itself. "This channel is being recorded. Power down your vessel immediately." But there was something different in her tone now. Urgency rather than threat. Her eyes darted to someone off-screen, then back to us. "Lieutenant Miguel Rivera," he continued, standing straighter. "I served with Elizabeth on the Deep Space Initiative. She had a birthmark on her left shoulder blade shaped like the constellation Cassiopeia. She kept a photograph of her daughter, your grandmother, inside her medical kit. Captain Dalton's face had gone pale. Her hand moved subtly, and the red recording light on the communication panel went dark. "That's classified family history," she said quietly. "How could you possibly?" "Because I was there," Rivera said simply. "We all were. 4,000 of us, preserved in stasis, waiting for the right time, waiting for our descendants to find us." Something shifted behind her eyes, calculation, doubt, maybe even hope. "If what you're saying is true, you've been declared enemies of the coalition. I'm duty-bound to report this discovery and take you into custody." I finally found my voice. "You know what they'll do. They'll strip that fleet apart, take the artifact and bury the truth all over again. Is that really what you want your legacy to be?" She was silent for a long moment. Then, "Approaching vessels, this is Captain Dalton. I'm detecting unusual radiation in this sector. Fall back to safe distance. I'll investigate and report findings." My heart skipped. She was sending the rest of her patrol away. "But why?" "I need to see for myself," she said to us. "If you're lying, I'll hand you over to Coalition intelligence myself." "And if we're not?" Rivera asked. "Then God help us all," she replied. Within 20 minutes, Captain Dalton's shuttle had docked with my ship. She came alone, without escort, her hand never straying far from her sidearm. When she saw Rivera up close, something in her posture changed. Recognition, perhaps, a feature she'd seen in old family holographs. "Take me to the fleet," she ordered. "I want to see everything." As we approached the Prometheus, I transmitted the all-clear codes Harper had given me. The massive ship's docking bay opened like an ancient maw, swallowing our small vessel. Inside, a welcome party waited, Harper, Nishimura, and a security detail, all looking tense and ready for trouble. The moment Dalton stepped onto the deck, her eyes widened. The architecture, the uniforms, the technology, all of it directly from historical archives, yet pristine and functional. "Impossible," she whispered. "Captain Sarah Dalton," Rivera made the introduction. "Granddaughter of Eliza Dalton, Elizabeth's daughter." Harper stepped forward. "Captain, I knew your great-grandmother well. She was brave, brilliant, and wouldn't have wanted her descendant upholding a system built on lies." Dalton's hand finally dropped away from her weapon. "The Coalition teaches us that the lost expedition was a tragedy, brave explorers who pushed too far and paid the price. A cautionary tale about the dangers of space. And yet here we stand," Harper said. "Why did you run?" Dalton asked. "What could have been so important that you abandoned Earth, your families, everything?" Harper glanced at Nishimura, who nodded. "Show her." We led Dalton to the artifact chamber. The moment she stepped through the door, the pulsing blue light seemed to intensify, reaching out with tendrils of energy that danced just inches from her face. She stood transfixed, not in fear but in wonder. "The Nexus," she whispered. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. Harper and Nishimura exchanged alarmed glances. "What did you call it?" Harper demanded. "The Nexus," Dalton repeated, still staring at the artifact. "That's what the highest levels of Coalition leadership call it. They've been searching for it for generations." "But how do they know about it?" Nishimura asked. "We took all the research, all the data." Dalton finally tore her gaze away from the artifact. "Because they found another one." The silence that followed was deafening. Another artifact. The implications were staggering. "When?" Harper finally asked. 70 years ago. A deep mining operation on Titan uncovered it. But it was different, dormant, dead even. They've been trying to activate it ever since without success. She looked back at the pulsing, vibrant artifact. "Not like this one." "That's why they've kept searching for us," Rivera realized. "They think we know how to activate their artifact." "And they're right," Nishimura said quietly. "This one showed us. It chose us." The artifact pulsed brighter as if in agreement. Dalton's comm unit suddenly crackled to life. "Captain Dalton, this is Coalition Command. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from your position. Report status immediately." She hesitated, looking between the artifact and us. I could see the conflict in her eyes. Duty versus truth, the present versus history. "What will they do if they find this?" she asked. "What powerful organizations always do," I said. "Control it. Weaponize it. Use it to maintain their position." "And what will you do with it?" Harper stepped forward. "Share it. The artifact isn't meant for one group, one corporation, one government. It's a gift to all humanity, a way to advance beyond scarcity, beyond the need for the kind of control the Coalition maintains. Dalton's comm unit crackled again, more insistent this time. She took a deep breath. Commander Harper, I need to see everything, all your research, all your findings. I need to understand what I'm risking my career, my life, for. Of course, Harper nodded. Captain Dalton. The voice from her comm was sharp now. Respond immediately or we will assume hostile conditions and send reinforcements. Dalton unclipped her comm unit and looked at it for a long moment. Then she raised it to her lips. Coalition Command, this is Captain Dalton. I've discovered debris from an old mining operation. The radiation is interfering with sensors. Nothing of concern. We'll continue patrol and submit full report upon return. She clicked off the comm and pocketed it. You have 24 hours to convince me this is worth committing treason for. After that, I have to return to my ship before they send a search party. As we led her deeper into the Prometheus to show her our records, the ship suddenly shuddered. Emergency lights flashed and the distant sound of alarms echoed through the corridors. What's happening? I called out as crew members began rushing past us. One of them stopped long enough to answer. The artifact, it's expanding. Dr. Nishimura, you're needed in containment immediately. We ran back toward the artifact chamber, only to find the doors fused shut, blue energy seeping through the seams. Through a viewport, I could see the artifact had tripled in size, pulsating wildly, filling the room with blinding light. It's never done this before, Harper said, voice tight with concern. Nishimura pressed his hand against the door, and to our shock, the blue energy reached out through the solid metal to touch his palm. His eyes widened. It's responding, he whispered. To her. He pointed at Dalton. To both of them. Both artifacts are connecting, across space. What does that mean? Dalton demanded. Nishimura turned to her, his expression a mixture of wonder and fear. It means the Coalition now knows exactly where we are. And they're coming. The next hours were a blur of frantic activity. Harper mobilized every awakened crew member, prioritizing engineers and pilots. They needed to get the fleet operational, fast. The artifact fragment you're carrying, Nishimura said, eyeing my pocket where the small container pulsed with increasing intensity. It's resonating with the main artifact. And with the one on Titan. Can we stop it? I asked. Block the signal somehow? He shook his head. We don't fully understand how they communicate. It's not electromagnetic, not any spectrum we can measure or shield. Dalton had been reviewing the expedition's research archives, her face growing more troubled with each passing minute. The Coalition's been lying for generations, she said quietly. Everything we're taught about our history, about the limitations of technology. Now you understand why they buried us, Harper said, studying tactical displays as her crew prepared the fleet for possible combat. The artifact doesn't just represent advanced technology, it represents freedom from their control. Proximity alarms blared throughout the Prometheus. Rivera rushed to the command console. Multiple Coalition signatures detected. 3 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought. My stomach dropped. A dreadnought was the Coalition's biggest warship, typically used only for major military operations or planetary bombardment. Time to intercept? Harper asked, her voice steady despite everything. 17 minutes, Rivera replied. Dalton stepped forward. Let me contact them. I can buy you time. Harper studied her face, looking for deception. Why would you help us? Because I swore an oath to protect humanity, not corporations. Dalton's jaw tightened. My great-grandmother believed in your mission enough to keep stories about you alive through generations, hidden in our family history. I won't betray that legacy. While Dalton prepared to contact the approaching fleet, Nishimura pulled me aside. The fragment you're carrying, we might be able to use it. How? The artifacts respond to human intent. That's why they chose us in the first place. If we can focus enough, harness its energy. He trailed off, looking uncertain. You don't actually know what will happen, I realized. It's unprecedented. But right now, it may be our only chance. On the command deck, Dalton opened a channel to the approaching Coalition forces. This is Captain Sarah Dalton of the GCS Vigilant. I'm investigating the radiation signature. Stand down and maintain distance. The face that appeared on screen was stern, older, a high-ranking admiral with cold eyes. Captain Dalton, you've exceeded your authority. Our sensors indicate you've made contact with unauthorized vessels. You are ordered to withdraw immediately. Admiral Chen, with respect, I'm still gathering data. The radiation is unusual. I recommend caution until... Captain, this is not a negotiation. His voice hardened. The Nexus has been located. Phoenix Protocol is now in effect. The blood drained from Dalton's face. Phoenix Protocol requires confirmation from Coalition High Command. Confirmation received 20 minutes ago. The Admiral's gaze was unflinching. You have 5 minutes to withdraw before we sterilize the area. The transmission cut. Dalton turned to us, ashen. Phoenix Protocol is a scorched earth directive. They'll destroy everything, the fleet, the artifact, all of us. They'd rather eliminate the technology entirely than risk losing control of it. Harper's eyes narrowed. Admiral Chin. Any relation to you, Alex? I shook my head. Chin is a common name, but... A cold realization washed over me. William Chin was my ancestor. Could the Admiral be a descendant of the same bloodline, Rivera finished, but one who chose a different path? There was no time to process this revelation. The dreadnought had moved into firing position, its massive weapons arrays charging. We don't have the power to fight back, Harper said grimly. Half our systems are still coming online after centuries of dormancy. Nishimura grabbed my arm. The fragment. It's our only chance. I pulled the container from my pocket. The artifact piece inside was pulsing rapidly now, its blue light so intense it leaked through the seams of the container. What do? I asked. Focus. Think about what you want, what humanity needs. The artifact responds to intent. I closed my eyes, clutching the container. What did I want? Freedom from coalition control? Technology that could change everything? As I concentrated, the container grew hot in my hands, almost painfully so. Suddenly, the ship shuddered as the dreadnought fired its first warning shot. A blast that passed just meters from our hull, the energy wake rocking the entire fleet. 2 minutes until full barrage, Rivera reported. In the artifact chamber, the main piece had expanded further, now filling nearly the entire room with pulsing blue energy. On the monitors, we could see it extending tendrils throughout the ship's systems, merging with the technology, transforming it. It's integrating with the fleet, Nishimura whispered in awe. The container in my hands suddenly cracked open, the fragment inside rising to hover above my palm. It spun faster and faster, then shot like a comet toward the main artifact chamber. The bulkhead doors, previously sealed, melted away as the fragment passed through, rejoining the hole. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Blue energy surged throughout the Prometheus, lights flaring, systems that had been dormant for centuries roaring to life. The energy didn't stop there, it leapt from ship to ship across the fleet, awakening each vessel in a cascade of power. On the tactical display, we watched as the Coalition dreadnought's weapons reached full charge, preparing to fire. They're targeting the Prometheus first, Rivera said. Firing in 10 seconds. Harper looked to me, then at the artifact chamber now blazing with blue light. Whatever's happening, I hope it happens fast. The dreadnought fired, a blinding beam of destructive energy that would tear through our hull like paper. But instead of impact, the beam struck what seemed to be an invisible barrier, blue energy flaring at the point of contact. The destructive force dissipated, harmlessly absorbed. The artifact is protecting us, Nishimura said in wonder. The phenomenon didn't stop there. The blue energy expanded outward in a wave, enveloping the entire fleet, then stretching further to touch the Coalition vessels. As it made contact, their ship's systems visibly faltered, weapons powering down, engines stalling. A new transmission came through, Admiral Chen's face now showing the first signs of fear. What are you doing? Our systems are being rewritten at the code level. Stop this immediately. Harper stepped forward. We're not doing anything, Admiral. The artifact is. And I think it's time you learn the truth. The blue energy wave continued to expand, now reaching toward distant stars. Our communications array suddenly activated on its own, broadcasting on all frequencies, to all colonies, all outposts, all planets. Images began flooding every screen on the Prometheus. Historical records, scientific data, proof of the Coalition's centuries of deception. The truth about the artifact, about the expedition, about the technologies that had been suppressed. All of it streaming outward at faster-than-light speeds, impossible to stop or censor. What have you done? The Admiral demanded, his voice cracking. We didn't do this, Dalton replied, watching in awe. The artifact decided humanity was finally ready for the truth. As the broadcast continued, something unexpected happened. The artifact's energy began to coalesce, forming what looked like a doorway in the center of the command deck, a shimmering portal of blue light. What is that? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Nishimura approached it cautiously. I think it's the next step. What the artifact has been preparing us for all along. Through the portal we could see stars, but not the stars of our familiar sky. Different patterns, different colors. A bridge to somewhere else. It's offering us a choice, Harper realized. Stay and help rebuild humanity with the truth now revealed, or follow the path it's opening for us. Before anyone could respond, Admiral Chen's face reappeared on screen, but changed, humbled, the arrogance gone from his eyes. The Nexus on Titan, it's activated too. It's showing us everything. The alternatives to our technology, to our society. The paths not taken. The revolution has already begun, Rivera said, watching as reports flooded in from across coalition space. Citizens taking to the streets, demanding answers, corporate headquarters being stormed, corrupt officials stepping down. The blue portal pulsed, seeming to grow impatient. Harper looked at her crew, then at me. Alex, you found us. You woke us up. You helped us change everything. What happens next is your choice. I looked between the portal to unknown stars and the view screen showing the beginning of humanity's transformation. The artifact had given us everything we needed to rebuild, to revolutionize society, to break free from corporate control. But as I stepped toward the portal, I realized there was one final surprise the artifact had been saving. Within the blue energy, taking shape like a hologram solidifying into reality, stood a figure, humanoid but clearly not human, watching us with eyes that held the wisdom of eons. They sent the artifacts, I whispered in sudden understanding. They've been guiding us all along. And as the figure extended a hand in greeting, I knew the revolution we'd started on Earth was just the beginning of humanity's true journey among the stars. Time seemed to stop as the alien figure stood before us, its form shifting slightly like the surface of water touched by gentle wind. It didn't speak, at least not with words, but somehow I understood it. We all did. Images, emotions, and concepts flowed from it directly into our minds. They've been watching us, Harper whispered, her voice filled with wonder. For centuries. Longer, Nishimura said. Since our first steps into space. Maybe even before. The being, the Pathfinder as I somehow knew it was called, gestured again toward the portal. The invitation was clear but not demanding. A choice freely given. Admiral Chen's voice broke through our trance. The artifacts across our systems. They're all activating. Something's happening everywhere. The fear in his voice had been replaced by amazement. Through our view screens, we could see the coalition fleet hanging motionless, bathed in the same blue energy that surrounded our ships. But they weren't being attacked or damaged, they were being transformed. Weapons systems reconfigured themselves into something else, something beyond our comprehension. They're being given a choice too, Dalton realized. Everyone is. The Pathfinder nodded, confirming her insight. In my mind, I understood more of what was happening. The artifacts weren't weapons or tools in the way we'd imagined. They were catalysts, designed to activate once humanity reached a specific juncture in its development, the point where we could either transcend our limitations or destroy ourselves through greed and control. It's a test, I said aloud. The artifacts were measuring whether we're ready to join something larger. The Pathfinder's form shimmered in what seemed like approval. Through the mental connection, I glimpsed a vast community of civilizations spread across galaxies, each having faced their own moment of truth, their own trial by artifact. What about Earth? The colonies? Rivera asked. The people still suffering under coalition rule? The answer came in another flood of images. The truth spreading unstoppably across human space, corporate power structures collapsing as their technological monopolies became meaningless. The artifacts were providing alternative technologies, clean energy, advanced medical knowledge, all the things the expedition had hoped to share centuries ago. The revolution's already won, Harper said, watching the feeds from across coalition territory. Not with weapons but with truth. A week later, everything had changed. The coalition as we knew it had dissolved, its military forces repurposed into a peacekeeping and exploration fleet. Former corporate leaders found themselves either adapting to the new reality or facing justice for centuries of deception. I stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, watching as crews worked to retrofit the ancient vessels with the new technologies provided by the artifact. Harper joined me, her uniform exchanged for more casual attire. "Have you decided?" she asked, looking toward the portal that still shimmered at the heart of the ship. It had remained open, a constant reminder of the path not yet taken. "I'm still thinking," I admitted. "Part of me wants to stay to help rebuild. The other part wants to see what's out there," she finished with a smile. I understand. Half my crew is staying to help guide humanity through this transition. The other half. She nodded toward the portal. What about you? I asked. 200 years ago, I made a choice to leave Earth behind to protect something precious. Now I've fulfilled that mission. Her eyes gleamed with anticipation. I think I've earned the right to see what comes next. Dalton had become an unexpected ally, using her knowledge of coalition systems to ensure the transition remained peaceful. Now she approached us, accompanied by Admiral Chen, who looked significantly humbled by recent events. The last of the corporate resistance has surrendered on Europa, Dalton reported. The artifacts have been established on every major world and colony. The changes are beyond anything we could have imagined. Admiral Chen nodded solemnly. Diseases we thought incurable healed. Energy shortages eliminated. People who were once enemies working together. He looked at me directly. Your ancestor would have been proud. The mention of family made me think about my own connections. My sister still back on the colonies, now experiencing a freedom she'd never known before. I'd spoken with her yesterday, watched her cry as she realized her children would grow up in a world without the crushing debt and restrictions we'd always accepted as normal. I made arrangements for your sister and her family, Harper said, seemingly reading my thoughts. If you choose to go through the portal, they'll be taken care of. They can even join the expedition crew if they wish. I smiled gratefully. Thank you. Rivera approached, followed by Dr. Nishimura and several other crew members. It's time, Rivera said. The Pathfinder is waiting. Together, we walked to the central chamber where the portal pulsed with gentle blue light. The Pathfinder stood before it, more clearly visible now than before. Other figures had joined it, representatives of different species, different civilizations that had all, at some point, faced their own moment of truth with their own artifacts. What will we find out there? I asked, though I already knew the answer wouldn't be simple. The Pathfinder extended its hand again, and the mental connection blossomed with images of worlds beyond imagination, civilizations built on cooperation rather than competition, knowledge freely shared across the stars. The real question, Harper said beside me, is what will they find in us? I thought about everything that had happened since I'd first detected that anomalous signal, how a routine salvage run had turned into revolution, how an abandoned fleet had changed the course of human history, how truth, once released, could never again be contained. I stepped forward, taking one last look at the view screen showing Earth, beautiful, blue, and finally free from the shadows that had darkened its potential for centuries. Ready? Harper asked, standing at the threshold of the portal with her crew. Admiral Chen approached me, extending his hand. Our ancestors made different choices, but perhaps their paths were meant to converge here. Safe journey, cousin. I shook his hand, feeling a strange sense of completion. Take care of our home. We will, Dalton promised. And when you return, you might not recognize it. With a final nod to those staying behind, I turned toward the portal. The Pathfinder gestured once more, inviting us forward into the unknown. Harper took my hand, and together we stepped through the shimmering blue light, not as saviors or revolutionaries, but as explorers continuing humanity's oldest and greatest journey. Behind us, the abandoned fleet that had changed everything wasn't abandoned anymore. And ahead of us stretched a universe of possibilities that no corporation could ever own, no authority could ever control. The revolution hadn't just freed humanity from its chains. It had set us on the path to the stars, our true destination all along.